Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Julissa. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my very last wrap up of the year. It is my December wrap up and I have some really great books on this list. They're not many, but you know, quality over quantity, of course. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, don't forget to do so. And if you don't follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I will have those linked in the description box below. And so let's just talk about these books that I read this month because yeah, they're pretty good. So, of course, in this pile, I have all fantasies here. I mean, it's kind of a shock, but like not really. Lately, I've been really engrossed in fantasy books because I think I'm starting to understand now the tension, the world building, the character arcs, the high stakes. Going into the new year, I will definitely be somebody who is reading more fantasy than anything else. So let's just get right into the books that I read, and we'll start with the first book I read this month. The first book I read is ACOTAR by Sarah J Maas. As you can see, I really tabbed this book. Like, I mean, I really went. Can you tell? I went hard in this book. I was writing a lot, I was tabbing, I have lots of sticky notes for really important moments because this book was the first book in a series, but after having read the last two books, I had to go back and kind of run through the book again because I think that this book did a lot of foreshadowing that I wasn't aware of until after I finished the series. Well, the last two books in the series because there's one more book coming out. So ACOTAR is actually a Beauty and the Beast retelling, although I don't feel like it had a very strong Beauty and the Beast retelling scenario going on. So we follow Feyre, who is a human girl, and she is taking care of her family. She pretty much provides for them. She is like the mother of her household. And one day she kills a wolf, and this wolf is actually a disguise. He's actually a fae. And so Feyre kills this wolf. Because of that, we have our other main character, Tamlin, who comes to Feyre's home and demands to know who killed the fae. We find out that it's Feyre. Feyre is taken to Tamlin's court, which is the spring court, and there she has to pretty much be captive in his home. Tamlin actually has this curse on him that requires him to be stuck in a mask, so we never see his face. Really and truly, this book is just following Feyre and Tamlin trying to get Feyre to fall in love with him to break this curse. However, there are other people who come into the book towards the end who make it very difficult for him to be successful with breaking this curse. If you go into this book hoping to get the Beauty and the Beast retelling feel, you won't get it here. I don't feel like Sarah actually followed through with that whole thing very well. Overall, I gave the book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it. I also didn't love it though. The romance in this book to me was not believable. I feel like Tamlin and Feyre never connected on a deeper level to the point where at the end their feelings for one another didn't seem real to me, and it felt very forced. We didn't get to dive into Tamlin's trauma that much. I feel like Tamlin's a very hated character in the book community, and I will say I don't like Tamlin either very much. I don't hate him, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we didn't get to discover more of Tamlin underneath that hard exterior, underneath the trauma, and so he really never had a fighting chance, and I think that's why I felt the disconnect between Feyre and Tamlin. There are a few other characters in this book that come into play that I really loved, like Lucian. I loved him. Alice was a great little side character, so there are highlights in this book. That brings me to talk about the next book in that series, and that is Court of Mist and Fury. This is a continuation of book 1, so I will try my best not to go into any spoilers here, but most of this book takes place at the night court. So mind you, Tamlin took Feyre to the spring court, and in this book Tamlin actually has to watch Feyre go with Rhysand to the night court. This happens because of a bargain that is made between Rhysand and Feyre, but we get to see Feyre and Rhysand get to know each other in a different way. Actually, my favorite part of this book, aside from the romance, is that here we see the world building really take place, and you get to kind of learn about other courts because there are different courts. You have the day court, night court, summer court, spring court. So there are other courts here, and we learn about other places in these courts, and I think that this is why book 2 shines, because you do get to see the world a little more broadly than you do in ACOTAR. You're limited to just the spring court in ACOTAR. The characters definitely do develop a lot more. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars because, for one, I feel like the romance in this book was definitely believable. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the characters, and then in this book you do get to meet the family in the night court, and the family that resides in the night court reminds me so much of how Bryce and the werewolves would have been in Crescent City. I don't really have any complaints with this one. Last but most certainly not least is Aqua War, which is a Court of Wings and Ruin. This book really messed me up. When I read this book, I initially felt like it was going very slow in the beginning. I think I gave this book a 4 stars, and that's because this one has more political intrigue than you get in the first 2 books. And for those who like books like Jade War, you'll like the fact that in this book it is more politically centered. The way that this book's set up is a little more discreet than the other 2. You see what happens in the background before people go into war, which is kind of enjoyable. I didn't hate it. It just took me a minute to grab onto it and like enjoy it. But there is a big meeting in this book that they had that I really loved because it had multiple people from all the courts come there and together, and it was really fun to see how all of the High Lords talk to one another and how they interact, because you have all these people who are powerful and have a say in how they want to go about the war because their land is at stake here. And and it was cool to see how all their personalities came together in a boardroom basically. And you have all these powerful people coming together who are pretty much butting heads on what they think is the best route to take, because mind you, in the first 2 books there's a wall that separates the Fae world from the human world, and there's a man, the King of Hybern, wants to destroy the wall and pretty much eradicate all of the humans. Of course Feyre has a problem with that because she's a human girl. A lot of the Fae are allies to the humans, and so they don't want the humans to go down, and they're fighting together to try to fight against King Hybern. He's pretty powerful, and he has this other little instrument, this tool that he has at his disposal that makes him even more powerful. We definitely see the Night Court and like the friends in the Night Court really come together. In Aqua, like I said, they have a great friendship, but in this book, because they're going to war, you see how protective and how loyal people are to the people that they love. And then you get to even see some characters who are willing to lay it all out on the line, risk their life, and then some. But this book was really enjoyable. I really did love it. Next, I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Again, I will not go in depth in this book either because I did do a review on this book, so I'll link it below. I love Ninth House. I give it 5 stars. It was so good, and it's a fantasy book, even though it doesn't really feel like one as you're reading it, just because it's not your typical fantasy like the ACOTAR series, you know what I mean? But it is fantasy, and it was really well done. But this book follows Alex Stern, who is a young girl who can see ghosts. Seeing ghosts makes her life really, really difficult, and as a young girl and teenager, she ended up finding out that drugs were the one thing that kind of quieted these voices in her head and helped her to kind of ignore the ghosts in her life. And so getting into these drugs caused her to lose her best friend. She actually ended up also in the hospital. While in the hospital, the dean of Yale came to her and said, if you come to Yale with me and use your gift and allow us to pretty much exploit that gift of yours, we will give you a house over your head, food, protection, basically all the things she's never had in her life growing up. And so when she goes to Yale, she realizes that there are secret societies here called the Houses of the Veil. These 8 houses all specialize in certain magic, so some specialize in necromancy, some specialize in glamour magic, I think. I can't remember all the magics, but basically Alex is here to pretty much just make sure when they do the rituals that things go as according to plan. But she finds out quickly that the person that she's working under, Darlington, he goes missing, and she's not sure where exactly he was taken to. And then she also finds out that the magic that they use and the reasons behind the magic that they're doing isn't exactly what they say it is. So she uncovers a lot of secrets about the 9th house, about the other houses. This book was so phenomenal because it is a dark academia book. It does have some gothic literature elements in it. It does have fantasy elements in it, but overall, this book was so beautifully written. I have really no complaints. People did say it was slow in the beginning, but to me, I feel like everything that was told to us in the beginning of the book was necessary, so it didn't feel like it was a waste of my time, which is why I didn't mind the pacing in the very beginning. It does kind of drag a little bit if you're not interested in it, but I was gripped. I was totally in, so I enjoyed this book so much. Sorry, really quick, just to kind of interrupt what I was saying, I did forget to mention that in this book there are trigger warnings here, so just if you haven't read this book yet, I did tap the red spot, so I will make sure that I will have that in the description box below. So if I didn't get all of them, I will type them out and I will have them down below in the description box. Last but certainly not least is The Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This book actually was gifted to me by my friend Christine over at Editorial Edge. By now, I guess her channel name is Any Ending, so I'm not sure when I will upload this, but I think by the time I upload, Christine's new channel will be named Any Endings. It will be in the description box below, so you'll be able to find it. But I have a lot to say about this book because I thought I would fall in love with it completely, but I didn't. I gave it 3 stars. Not surprising, I don't think, to most people, because I think that with this book, there are those who loved it and then there are those who thought it was okay. I think it's really hard to rate a first book in a series because I tend to want to rate the entire series as a whole because it's one story just split up into 3 books. And so this book follows Tessa, who travels to London because her brother has sent her a note and a ticket telling her to come to him. When she gets to London, immediately she is actually taken by these people called the Dark Sisters, and the Dark Sisters are telling her that they have her brother pretty much under a lockdown, and if she doesn't tap into the power that she actually possesses, they will probably kill him. And so her power basically is that she can turn into anyone. So all she needs is a personal item from somebody and she can turn into them. And this person called the Magister actually wants to harness her power. So the Dark Sisters are actually in charge of making Tessa learn how to use her power so that the Magister can use her. But eventually Tessa actually gets rescued by shadow hunters, Will and Jim, and they are the 2 friends who live in the Institute, which is just a place where other shadow hunters live. In the end of this book, there are 2 plot twists here that definitely took me by surprise. I did not see them coming, not until like 5 pages before it happened, so I would say that's a pretty good thing that I didn't guess it right from the beginning. I had a couple of issues with this book. I read boring books. This was not a boring book. It just felt very mundane. I don't know what this book was missing. I thought about it, trust surprise me. I thought about it for a while, trying to figure out why this book was not higher than 3 stars for me. Aside from not really connecting with any of the characters, I don't feel like any of them really stood out to me in this first book. I mean, yes, I like Will, but there are moments where I didn't like Will. So like, I'm not a full Team Will person quite yet. Jem, super sweet character, but again, I didn't feel like he was that strong in the book. I don't feel like any of them had a strong presence in the story so far. I definitely do think once I read the next 2 books that I'll have a different opinion about them. One thing I want to mention about this book, which again, I have to keep in mind the time period that this book is supposed to be taking place in. It takes place in the 1880s. So obviously different times than now. So I can definitely see why people might have a problem with some of the things that are in this book and some of the language. There was a couple of things in here that I thought was weird, especially given that this is a YA book. I definitely think that there are some questionable moments here. Pretty enjoyable for the most part. Not a book that I love. Overall, a pretty decent reading month in December. I did not include the novellas I read at the beginning of the month just because I have a reading vlog for them already and they were Christmas themed, so I really don't want to talk about them in this particular video. But definitely a pretty solid reading month for me. I cannot wait to share my January TBR with all of you. I'm really excited for that because I have some really great books to read next month. With that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you guys in my next video.